a week or two ago, when I was sick, there was a community meeting, and I wasn't there, but I read the notes from it, and a few points came up that I would like to address. One of the things that I heard come up again and again in the notes from the community meeting was people were they were wondering what is training, and they were saying we would like more predictability and we would like more clarity here at the Abbey in our community life and in our training. So predictability, clarity, those words came up again and again in the notes. Maybe you can't remember the meeting you had, or you can't remember what you thought back then, but because it's all changed since then. But anyway, those were some of the points that came out in the go-around. So it made me think, okay, predictability. Now, when in samsara do we have predictability? Yeah. Life in samsara is under the influence of ignorance, craving attachment, hostility, not particularly wonderful things. And the nature, when we study about samsara, the nature is that it changes in every split second, never remaining the same from one moment to the next. That the things in samsara created by under the power of ignorance are unsatisfactory by nature, and that in this whole process there is no supervisory self. There's no self that's in charge, whether it is a creator God or manager of the universe that is in charge, or a self that belongs to us personally that should be able to control things. So given that this is what samsara is, which is what we're trying to understand through our Lamrim meditations, when we're meditating on the nature of samsara. So where in samsara is there predictability? The only predictability that we can really see is that things are changing in every split second. And we're not going to find any ultimate lasting happiness in samsara. And that there is no self in the whole process. Aside from that, is there any predictability in our day-to-day life? Yeah. We think there should be predictability. Yeah, don't we? We think there should be. But, sometimes what we think doesn't matter because reality is what it is, no matter what we think it is. So we may think there should be predictability, and the world would really run much better if people were consistent, if they were predictable, if they acted the same way all the time, if they thought the same way all the time, if they did what they said they were going to do, if circumstances never changed quickly, the world would really function much better. Yeah. And we can vote that that should be the case. Please look here. That bug is not the Dharma teaching. You should not let yourself get distracted by somebody passing a bug. Given that what samsara is, and that our wish for what samsara should be, are totally contradictory, then who are we going to complain to that they should change what samsara is to make it what we want it to be? We want predictability, clarity, consistency. Who are we going to complain to? Yeah. Well, we complain to other sentient beings, but they're changing moment by moment in the nature of dukkha and also have no self. So what are we complaining to? And what's the source of the mess that we're in that has no predictability? The source is our own ignorance. So if we want to do something about the lack of predictability, clarity, and consistency in our lives, the real solution is to transform our mind. It's not to tell the world how it should be, because everybody's been saying we should have more predictability and consistency and clarity for eons. Right? Yeah. So it's interesting to think, here it is, this thing that I think is so important. And, people go to managerial courses and study how to run organizations so that there's more predictability. Can you, in any organization, is there 100% predictability? Yeah. These courses are good. They're nice and they teach you things and, they help. But can they bring 100% predictability? Can they tell you when people are going to get sick? Can they tell you when people are going to change their mind? Can they tell you when the electricity is going to go out? Yeah. Can they tell you when you're going to have a heavy snowfall and you're going to have to spend most of the day plowing? Yeah. I mean, we may want predictability, but let's get real. Okay, so that's one thing to think about. Yeah, when we're saying, oh no, what are we doing here at the Abbey? Things are so unpredictable. I have a plan for the day and then it changes. There's a plan for training such and such and then it gets changed. We make a booklet for the training and then the booklet gets changed. And we have a rota and then the people, they have something else they have to do, so the rota gets changed, and everything's so unpredictable in this place. It's driving me crazy. Then, what are you going to do about it? Yeah, if we're in samsara, that's our responsibility. Yeah. And we might begin by asking if we're predictable. We want everybody in our environment to be predictable. Are we predictable? Anybody here who's predictable? Yeah. Okay. So it's something really to think about, that things happen due to multiple causes and conditions, not just to one cause and condition, or condition, but many, many, many causes and conditions. And it's really mind-blowing when you sit down. Like if we were to sit down and think about all the causes and conditions that brought us all together to sit in this room, then we would have to go back through each of us, through all of our past lives. We would have to think about everybody who was involved in building this building and all of their lives. We would have to think of all the materials that are involved in our being together, and where did they come from? And we could never really finish thinking about all the causes and conditions that led to that moment. Yeah, it's really impossible for our brain to encompass that. You know, many of these causes and conditions came from previous lives. We aren't even aware of what they are consciously. So, seeing that there's so many causes and conditions, is it realistic to think that we should be able to control all of them? Or that somebody else in our environment who is in charge should be able to control all the things? Yeah. Do you think that there's one person in charge of this monastery? That everything depends on one person? Yeah. No, that can't be. We're all playing a role. Yeah. We can't even control our own minds, let alone each other's minds. Yeah. So, you know, where's this thing of I want predictability and control and clarity and consistency so that everything falls in line perfectly, you know, just like the lesson plan that I was taught to do at university, where, you know, you have your whole schema, you know, whether you're an engineer or a teacher or an accountant or whatever, everybody has a schema, you know, and this is how you have to do it, and you have to fill in all these things. Yeah, so we have all of that filled in. Does that make it certain that that's what reality is? We're just talking conventional reality, that things are going to happen according to the form we filled out and the plan we developed. Yeah. I mean, this is one big thing I've learned from being the disciple of one of my teachers, is that as soon as you have a plan, you know what is not going to happen. Yeah. You don't know what is going to happen, but you know for sure that what was planned won't happen, but you're not sure about which part of the plan won't happen. So you've got to be there close by, because some part of the plan could happen when it's planned, but most of it won't happen when it's planned, but you don't know when it will happen. And I'm just talking about when the teaching's going to start, the time that the teaching starts. Yeah. I mean, that's simple, isn't it? You make a time, everybody shows up, and it starts. Not with my teacher. There's a plan. You know what time it's supposed to start. Don't count on it starting then. But you don't know when it will start. Okay, so this is training. Yeah, we think training is that nice little plan, the outline in the Anagarika booklet, the outline in the Shramanera booklet and the Shikshamana booklet and the Bhikshuni booklet, you know, the one with all the numbers. And we think training is you study these things here, you know, you take a test on those things, and if you pass the test, you've been trained. That's not what I call training. Anybody can read a book and pass a test, except for the kiddies, you know. Reading a book and passing a test does not mean you're trained. Training is character building. Training is what goes on inside here. And there's, you know, and they have, yes, all sorts of psychological devices to observe people and check their, consistent patterns to see if they're acting in a certain way. Yeah, this is how I got through college. I worked on psychology research projects. Yeah. Does that have any, how much does that have to do with what is actually someone's character and what's really going on in their mind and how they're going to act in stressful situations and how they're going to act when their ego's challenged? Yeah, you read a book and pass a test, so what? Yeah. Belden, what was the name of the monk who was in prison for 30 years, who came to DFF? Belden Gyatso, right. So in his book, I remember him talking about one Geshe, somebody with a PhD in Buddhist studies, who, when arrested by the Chinese communists and was being interrogated by them, completely dissolved into tears and pleaded for his life and was hysterical. And Pelden Gyatso observed that, and it really impacted him, like, wow, this person's had all that training, and when push comes to shove, what happens? Yeah, training is out the window because the training wasn't integrated in the person's being. Okay? So, yeah, if you feel very uncomfortable because we don't have 108 step lesson plan that is going to be done in 4 months with so many sessions each week, which are exactly 53 minutes and 22 seconds long, and that the test, you will have a test so and so. If the lack of all of that disturbs you, that is your training. That is your practice. Because what we're trying to create here is not people who can memorize a book and spit it back out at you. We're trying to create people who are flexible, who are compassionate, who can respond to whatever is in front of their face in a positive way that benefits themselves and others. That's what we're trying to do here, the kind of people we're trying to create. And so for that reason, things cannot be and should not be 100% predictable. But nobody here is trying to make things predictable. We're all trying to make things, nobody's trying to make things unpredictable. We're all trying to make things predictable, which just shows what a fallacy predictability is. Okay? So the training is to learn to adjust to the situation, not to be so rigid that we say, this is too unpredictable, this is too inconsistent, this is not clear. It's got to get clear. Where's a box? I got to put everything in a box. And then you're like this. Okay, so that's quite sad. Who wants to be here and be like that? Yeah. But if you're like that, it's not because of the stink bugs, and it's not because of the turkeys. Yeah, and it's not because of our friends who give us food. It's not because of each other. If we're like that, it's because of our own afflictions, our own false expectations. So coming up against these afflictions and false expectations, that is training. And that's what's going to make you it's going to make you change. So like I said, nobody plans it. We don't have to. Samsara by its own nature makes everything change. Yeah. Since I came back from Asia, I've been planning every day to work on this manuscript. Yeah. I've been back how many weeks? And I've done 12 pages. You people are so unpredictable. Every day I have a plan, and then you come to me with this, that, and the other thing. Okay? So think about multiple causes and conditions and how nobody is in control. Okay? Then also think about the fact that veiled truths, conventional truths, everyday objects, when we're working in the sphere of relativity, I'm not talking about Einstein, but just relative existence, conventional existence, okay, it's messy because everything we're dealing with exists by only being designated by term and concept, and nothing has its own essence. So even we use language to communicate, we're only approximating things. You know, when you really think about it, it's kind of amazing that we sentient beings ever manage to communicate at all. Because what we mean by different words is so different. Yeah. I mean, just last night, reading the reasoning book, the debate book, yeah, and how that's written and how, you know, you could write it in a totally different way. Okay? So veiled truths, things are messy. There's no clear distinction between this and that. Yeah? The distinctions we make are, you know, they're arbitrary in many ways. And if we grab onto those distinctions as inherently existent, because we want more clarity, is this person a this? Are they a that, or are they another thing? Should they be able to read this book or that book or the other book? Should they sit here or should they sit there? You know? Depends on who you talk to, doesn't it? You know, even we say we're going to sit by ordination order. Oh, sit by ordination order means a bunch of different things to a bunch of different people. And what about some of the people who can't sit in ordination order and they need special circumstances to be in the room? Yeah. Are you going to make them sit in ordination order just because you think that's the way it should be? So there's, you know, many people on the floor, but somebody who can't sit on the floor but got to sit in ordination order. So, and they're a tall person, so they're sitting right in the front row, in the middle of the front row. Tall. Everybody sitting around them is on the floor. But we're sitting in ordination order, but nobody can see. And that poor person feels very self-conscious. Yeah. So then they try, then everybody complains, I can't see. So then the person sits on the ground. But then everything about them hurts, so they're moving all the time. And they feel embarrassed because of having to move. You know, are you getting what I'm saying? It's like we want predictability, but what exactly is that? And what are we giving up by trying to fit everything into some rigid kind of structure? Okay. So I had a few more things here. So when you're uncomfortable with how things change on a dime, and this happens not only here, but everybody who's listening from afar, you know, Same thing in their lives. This is not unique here. Okay. So when you're uncomfortable with how things change on a dime, watch your clinging to permanence and stability. Instead of your letting your mind go to, why are things like that? They shouldn't be like this. Turn it inward and, okay, what am I holding on to? My concept of permanence, my concept of stability, how are those functioning in my life? What do they make me think? What do they make me do? Okay. So what really is the problem? Is it that things changed suddenly, or that we had the expectation that things would go according to the plan? What exactly is the problem? Okay. So good to ask ourselves this. Yeah. What really is causing my discomfort? And when you really go deep, you see, just how deep our clinging is and how fear-based samsara is, how we're trying to make everything, so it's secure in an environment that is basically insecure. Yeah. We're all aiming for security, but who around us is secure and what around us is secure? Yeah. So very good, to think about that and try and let your mind chill out a little bit. Okay. Then another one, when you're uncomfortable with certain people, instead of listing all their bad qualities, check up on your own opinion factory. Yeah. Is my opinion factory working overtime here? I have this, that, and the other opinion about somebody else, so that this, even they walk in the room, they're walking wrong, they're not doing it right, they're interrupting my peace. Check up on the opinion factory and how it works. When you can't stand others' suggestions, their ideas, their ways of doing things, they put the cups upside down when you want them right side up. Yeah. They start things 5 minutes early when you come 5 minutes late. You think something should be painted this color and they paint it the other color. You want something made like this and they make it like that. Yeah. You expect the internet to work. Yeah. You expect the person who comes out to install the internet to make it better and not to make it worse. Yeah, you expect that it should work perfectly after the first day after the person came out, whereas it worked worse the first day. It worked worse the second day. And it was only on the third day that things got better. And then on the fourth day, the electricity went out and the internet went out again. Yeah. So, yeah. So it's very interesting. If this kind of thing is agitating us and driving us crazy, to look and like, what, I'm grasping at permanence. I'm grasping at true existence. Huh? Somebody suggests another way to do something. I don't like that way. My way of doing it is good. Yeah, so That's why sometimes, you'll see me give an instruction and the response I get is that. And then I say, okay, go do it your way, and then you learn from your own experience. Then you think, oh, she's such a pushover, except when she's not. She shouldn't be such a pushover. She should be more clear and consistent. But when she's clear and consistent, I wish she were a pushover. Okay. So, also, when you don't like the way things are done, check up on your arrogance. I have the one right way to do things. I don't like the way you're doing things. It's wrong. Yeah, you should do things this way. To be predictable, consistent, clear. Okay, so that's only this part of what I had written out, but I think that's enough for today, maybe? Too much for today. Okay, but I with the Vinaya training course coming up, I thought it was important to kind of say these things. Every time I tell Venerable Wuyen about things happening at this here, she just laughs. She says, that happens everywhere. But I don't think we want to show off our faults.
She'll see them.
Yeah, exactly.
If my brother and sister can see them, then we.
You mean they criticized us?
No,
Your brother and sister criticized? They noticed? What faults do we have? Oh no! My reputation, our reputation. Quick. Yeah, write them a letter and say that they misunderstood.